So whenever you are ready, Mr. Botley,
Okay.
right then.
Yep.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Let's do it.
Hello, Jess.
Hi, guys.
Hello. Let's crack on, because you've got an almighty amount of memories, I imagine, from when did you join SIYT?
February 2011. So
the month.
Even the month. Only reason why I know the month is because of how late I came into the process at the time. So, yeah, February 2011. So just over 9 years now.
And that would have been for which show?
A Midsummer Night's Dream. With you, lovely lot. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it was really, really good. I think the first day I had with SIYT, if you like, was actually your tech run. If I remember rightly, so it was very, very late into the process. But yeah, Tyler needed a favour, came and hunted me down at work, which is it's just mad. While I was working, and just said, "Oh, are you free next week? I think we might need you." I was like, "Oh, okay, no problem," and that was it. So yeah, Midsummer Night's Dream was my first one.
What was your role?
So my role at the time was stage manager. That's what I came in to kind of help out with and initially do for really just for that week. That was all that it was kind of intended to be at the time.
Oh, how wrong you were.
It's 10 years later and I'm still in it, honestly. But that's a really, really positive, in a really positive way, kind of how I feel about it. It wasn't, and I think that's how a lot of people get involved as well, is kind of almost by accident, sort of falling into it, falling in love with it, and never ever leaving. You just stay forever. And Jono just approached me on the last day and just said, "Oh, actually, do you want to stick around?" And I was like, "Yeah, I really, really do, because I really love it." And that was it. That sealed the deal. So yeah.
So for people who don't really know what your role is, talk to them about your role.
So my role now is production manager / whatever I need to be on the day. That's essentially a production manager's role. Is you'll step into whatever shoes you need to step into at whatever time that might be. So you've got to wear multiple hats. Tend to do more of the backstage stuff. So it's more of the stuff that you don't see, that hopefully will go seamless on the night for the kids' benefit. Things like the set, the props, and that side of things, and just making sure that side of things is as organised as it can be, and working with the venue to make sure that we're doing things that they need us to be doing, and that we're doing things right, but also that we've got everything that we need there as well. So I tend to be first point of call, whether that's the Burgess Hall, Cornex, or even at the Fringe, that when we're in production week, that they'll come to me if there's any issues, and we'll try and fix them. So yeah.
So it's usually an intense week for you, or intense 2 weeks, shall we say?
Yeah, definitely. So I tend to be, or I try to be, first one in, last one out. So that's generally the role of a stage / production manager anyway, for anybody who knows about the industry outside of youth theatre. The stage and production managers are the ones that are first to arrive, last to go. And I love that. That's really nice, because you get to see that kind of transition of this just empty space. It magically transforms. I wish with a wave of a magic wand. That would be really nice. Into whatever the kids need, whatever set we've got coming in, and then you see it sort of empty again at the end of the week, and maybe a little bit messier. Sorry to our venues about that, but we try and tidy up as best we can.
Now, you've worked on a number of shows. Generally, what are your favourites?
Yeah, so I think it's a bit like having children. You're not meant to have favourites, are you? It's like, it's always that unspoken thing. But yeah, definitely, I had a really good think about it. And obviously, I mentioned when I did sort of my short video for you guys about the Fringe, but one show that I just think, and hopefully you guys will agree with me, will always stand out, is going to be the OG Bugsy, the original Bugsy Malone, which just, every time I think about it, I'm like a Cheshire cat. I just grin, because it was everything you could dream it to be from start to finish, I think, from my perspective. I mean, by that point, I'd been with SIYT a little while, but it was kind of that show that really cemented for me, oh my God, I literally love everything I do, and I love these kids so much. And it was just standing there every night with absolute pride in your heart, and just being like, you know what, I just love everything about what I'm doing. And it was just insane. And the set was insane. The set was beautiful, and hat off to Tyler for finding that. I wasn't involved in finding that set too. I can't take the glory of that one, but I wasn't actually there for the get-in. That's the one show that I've missed the get-in for, because I was away myself, married.
That's probably why you like it so much. You didn't have to do all the hard work.
Maybe.
I'm joking. You know a lot. Sorry.
But no. To be fair, you're probably right. But so I arrived on the Monday, and I had a text from Tyler on my way there. I kind of texted him, I was like, I'm on my way, I'll be there soon. He said, you're not allowed to come in. Don't come in, let me know when you're in the foyer and I'll come out and get you. And I was like, oh God, something's gone wrong. One time that, I'm not there, something might have gone wrong, oh my God. And he literally covered my eyes. He walked me into the Burgess Hall. Lights, he got somebody to do something with the lights to light it all up, and lights down in the audience. And literally, like, his hands removed from my eyes, and I fell in love. Literally just fell in love with this set, and I thought, this is absolutely everything that you could possibly imagine. The kids have worked hard. I've watched all the rehearsals, been to every single rehearsal, seen you guys strut your stuff. Like, it was amazing.
On the flip side, what's been the toughest one you've worked on?
To be fair, none of them have kind of stood out as being necessarily tough. I would say that the fringe productions are the ones where you work the hardest. You work harder than you've ever worked before in your life. And you go home absolutely shattered by the end of the week because of how much work everybody's done. I'd say that they're the most challenging to get to and to get ready for, from the point of view of, rather than the artistic point of view, the organisational point of view of getting everybody to the right place at the right time, the right tickets, the accommodation, putting all of that together and working as a team to get all of that organised. I think that's been the most challenging experiences the 3 times that we have been, definitely. But in terms of the shows, each of them brings their own challenges. Each of them brings their own little hurdles that we get through. But it's at the end of the week when you're like, wow, okay, we didn't think we'd overcome that, but we actually really did, and we made it work, and we made it good. Normally the biggest crew on the mile, biggest cast on the mile, so it's kind of hard to miss us. But we had James Atherton in my group one year, and I want to say that it was the first trip that we did. I want to say it was What I Want to Say But Never Will, but I could be wrong. We'll have to check with James on this one. But he was in our group and he kept wandering off. So every now and again we'd look around and be like, we've lost James. Everyone stuck together doing their little sort of flash mobs or whatever they were doing, and James would just disappear up the mile, and you'd just shoot up the mile and he'd just be there, sitting there, absolutely fine, handing out his flyers, no problems at all. You'd be like, oh my God. But that's like the biggest heart attack, I think.
With What I Want to Say is, although we had about 50, 60 kids, we were deemed, especially in our venue, we were deemed one of the quietest, most respectful groups. And I can imagine, I can remember seeing some of the staff as our kids were coming up the backstairs and would walk into the venue, and you'd see the staff going,
"1, 2, 3, 4, 5." Yeah, exactly. No, and I think for my point of view, being backstage and doing sort of that background stuff and being that contact with the venue, when you get comments like that filtered down to you, and they're like, well, actually, we adore having you here. You're like part of the family. You should be so proud of your kids, which we were anyway. But to hear that from other people just literally melts you. Like, you're just like, oh God, I'm so, when you just don't think you could get any prouder of them, all of a sudden your pride just shoots through the roof, because you're like, well, actually, you could be little hooligans, do you know what I mean? And probably when we told them, we're at SIYT, we've got 60 cast members, bear with us, they were like, oh my God, God help us. But actually, by being there and being just who they are, every time, we're a firm favourite up there, I think. Not with everybody.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Harking back to some of the moments, and apologies for calling you out, but you do typically cry a little bit sometimes, don't you?
I am. I'm the crier. Yeah, I blame Eam. I do. I always blame Eam for that, because that was my first summer production, but I am, I'd say that I definitely challenge anyone to cry as much as me during the production week, or during the general production. There's my cat. The first time I cried at SIYT, we were in the Corn Exchange. It was the final song. Don't ask me what it is. Peter and Sam, you might remember. and you guys were sort of where you just kind of walked the length of the stage, crossed over, and went back. And I just stood there and bawled my eyes out. Trish one side had Jono the other, and they both just looked at me like, "You're right." This is ruining me. And every night after that, it was just, I couldn't watch that without absolutely bawling my eyes out. And every show since, I cry at everything.
You did take a dive into sort of the artistic side as well. Jumped into Shakers. So tell us about that experience.
Ian Lloyd asked me the question because Tyler was going to be doing the National Connections programme that year with We Lost Elijah, and it was a one-act show. And the committee, I think we talked kind of back and forth for a little while. Do we do a second one act to kind of couple it like you had with Bang Bang and Lord of the Flies? I think sort of way back when. So, and he just said, "Do you want to direct a show?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, not a problem." Sort of thinking, yeah, that was it. So, yeah, definitely. I mean, it was an instant yes, just because I wanted that experience, and it was definitely fun being on the other side, definitely, and being able to get more involved with that artistic side of things and letting out part of your artistic side, which I hadn't done since I've been at uni. I studied drama at university. So it had been a little while, a few years since I'd kind of been able to get that creativity flowing, which was really good. And I had a text from Frankie. She wanted to get on board. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. So Frankie came on board as an artistic director as well, which was fantastic to have her with me during that time, because we were both sort of treading unknown territory at that point. It was very like, oh God, I don't know if I'm getting this right. But Shakers is an amazing show, really, really physical, and we were so lucky with our cast, like incredibly lucky. Those girls were phenomenal, and just so much fun to work with, and they were tight with each other. They got on really well. We had Nana in there as well, who we had for the year, and everyone got on beautifully, and it was a great experience. It's not one that I've done sort of since. I think I realised from my point of view, I much prefer being away from sort of the spotlight, as it were, and kind of doing the bits behind the scenes. But it was definitely a great experience to have, and connected me with the cast in a completely different level.
So it must have been quite nice to, be able to sit there and kind of, on tech night and then of course on the final night when you can just sit and just enjoy it because there's no notes to be given and whatever.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, definitely. And that was a very strange experience. It's one that I'm sure any production stage managers will share with me. It's, as soon as you take that moment of you're not involved and you're not running around mental, that you almost feel like, oh my God, there's something I should be doing. Yeah. I'm on that, and it's like, no. And I had Matt, he was doing our light and sound at the time. He had to keep reminding me, no, like, you're not doing that. Yeah. You don't need to worry. And I'm like, okay, it's fine.
You've had to deal with a number of directors as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
And different personalities.
I think I counted them. I think it was like 10. I think there's 10 directors in total over time, I think.
So I want you to rank them all now. Providing I'm at the top and Peter's number 2. Talk to us about your favourite memory.
I think one of my favourite memories is actually at the first Fringe. I was trying to think of the name of the band and I can't remember it, but I do remember Chloe Fiegelman bought their CD. So Chloe, if you're watching, help us out. You might remember that there was a guitarist or 2 guitarists sitting in Grassmarket when we went down one day, and that's where everyone kind of gathered for lunch, and that's where we all kind of met back up before going on to the venue to perform. And all of a sudden, these guys started playing, and you guys started singing, and then some of you started dancing. Then everyone was singing and dancing, and all of a sudden, we just took over these guys' set. And it was, I mean, don't get me wrong, they do like us. I promise you that they do, because every year we go back, they are there, and it's just miracle that they're there at the same time as us. And the same thing happens over and over again. But everyone was very tired. Everyone was feeling quite lethargic because obviously, it's kind of late finishes, early starts at the Fringe. It's very emotionally and physically draining. Everyone was kind of taking that moment, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this energy just sparked amongst everybody. Everyone was up on their feet. Everyone was singing and dancing around on the Grassmarket. And obviously, we're not, we're not a small group of people. We're quite a big group of people. You can't miss us when we're in our hoodies and t-shirts and making noise. So that kind of attracted crowds as well. People were like, oh my God, what's going on? It's like, this is purely by accident, I promise you, this isn't planned. But and the last night of Bugsy will, I think somebody else said this as well, will always resonate as a favourite memory, when the guns wouldn't stop firing. And that was one time when I managed to run up onto the balcony. I'd arranged to kind of, as soon as that last scene was on, nobody needed anything from me, so my job was pretty much done. And I sort of thought, oh, last night I'm going to run up and see it. And just the guns, the splurge guns, we'd told the kids, we'd refilled everything, we'd gone crazy with the shaving foam on the plates and things that they were throwing. We just said, go nuts. We've got loads of sort of cans of this stuff. Go crazy. Go absolutely mental. Do your worst. Like, this is your last night. Just crack on. Do what you need to do. And they did. They went absolutely insane. I think some of the audience got caught. Sorry if that was you. And yeah, but it was hilarious. And then everyone obviously dies at the end of Bugsy, and everyone's on the floor. But these guns firing. And we were absolutely wetting ourselves up on that balcony. We were cracking up. It was amazing. But it was just one of those moments that, again, totally unscripted. And those are the bits that I like will always be my favourite memories in shows, when it's totally unscripted, totally off the cuff, totally just in the moment, or not even within your control, which at that point it wasn't. I think one of the triggers had broken. So it just kept firing this sort of thing out the gun. And it's like, oh my God. And it just didn't stop. And Brian was waiting. Brian, who was playing piano in the band at that point, was obviously waiting for it all to go quiet, and he waited and he waited and he waited. We were like, Brian, I think you need to do it. And it just carried on, and the audience loved it. And that clean-up that night, I think like Trish will probably agree, it was kind of the regret.
Yeah.
Saying, go mad. It was like, why did we tell them to go mad? This is awful. But like, yeah, it was just amazing. It was all kinds of wonderful. I love that.
We take for granted when you're, I said we, like me and Sam will have taken it for granted when we were in youth theatre, and now we're on the other side of it. You see, you know, what goes on behind stage, but or you know, when you know you're not rehearsing, and yes, rehearsals take up a long time, and this is sort of something that the kids, you know, yes, rehearsals take up a long time, and yes, you give over your Sundays, but you'll often find, you know, you, Jess, in the hut with a paintbrush painting bits of set. Or I know Legally Blonde, you had spent many Saturdays and Sundays in there, just in the baking hot, you know, just having to paint these blocks, and you know, it's that sort of like constant, you know, and constant effort, constant commitment. What kind of drives you to kind of do that? Like, you know, to give over all those hours of doing quite not menial, that's the wrong word, like sort of laborious. I don't even know if that's a word. Strenuous tasks, you know, that are kind of very repetitive and like.
Loving way. It's kind of almost like the jobs that nobody else wants to do or can do or has the time to do, and that's kind of my job. And I love my job though. I do love it. It makes it sound like, oh really? Like, but no, honestly, like, I absolutely love what I do. But the love of what you do literally drives you to do whatever you have to do to make it happen. And it's the kids that do that for me. I mean, just seeing them every week, seeing them grow, you literally watch them grow up. Like, I watched you guys grow up, you know, first time I saw you in Midsummer Night's Dream, and then to your final shows, and there's multiple people I can think of that, you know, were like 11 when I met them. Tiny, like Bradley Durnley is a classic example, where he was Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream, shorter than me. I'm only 5'2", so you know it's not challenging. But and then you know watched him grow and watched him develop and become this absolutely amazing human being, as with all of our other members and ex-members as well. And it's that kind of makes you want to put that time and that effort in, and it doesn't even cross your mind of, oh, I'm sacrificing that weekend, or I'm doing all this, and those little jobs of kind of doing the Morrison's run to get the food bits that you need and the muffins or whatever else it is that you might. All the directors, you know, that I've worked with have all been very, very different, and that's, you know, something I've definitely learned, is that every director is different in how they approach things and how they do things, and how things get done. And you've got to really be very malleable as a person to be able to do that. We all do. Everyone in the committee does. But yeah, it was definitely like a lovely time during the spring with DNA and Dumbwaiter, because you guys are so proactive as directors anyway, also very clear with your vision, which is very nice as well. When the director is so sort of very, very specific, this is what I want, you actually prefer that, because then you're like, okay, now I kind of get the direction that we need to go in. And again, that's super helpful, as long as you know where you're going with what information you've got. Again, the autopilot just kind of clicks on.
I'll throw it back to 12 incumbent endurance, because that one was probably one of the most simplest sets and easiest get out that we've done, that I think you were literally like, it's not much for me to do, is there?
Literally, I think the thing that took the longest was the curtains, and anyone who's involved with getting those curtains up every year will know that you get about halfway, and that's the only time that you go, oh my god, no, we're not done yet. Just because they are enormously heavy and it's a big space to fill. But apart from the curtains, I literally just looked at it, I was like, okay, you know, I'd love to say that's an enjoyable moment. For a moment it is, because you're like, wow, this is just so chill, so easy. Let's do this again. Let's just keep doing 12 incompetent jurors over and over and over again every year. Just, yeah, it does feel a bit strange when you've had some really elaborate sets and some shows that demanded those elaborate sets. I think the biggest one so far has to be either Grease or Fame, the size of set. But when you then suddenly sort of really shrink it down to barely, basically a table and some chairs, really, and it was all reliant on the performers, and it was an amazing show. But from a backstage point of view, when you're so used to sort of darting about all over the place to not really being needed, it's like, oh god, what do I do? There's that panicky moment. So
then come Legally Blonde, I'm like, I want a rotating set. Yeah. I want 2 rotating sets.
I think we went through a couple of sort of set designs for that one, didn't we? But yeah, no, definitely. But you know, I think the summer ones, when we do a really big production, it almost demands that sort of, you know, that's what makes a director, is dream big. It's then the production managers and stage managers' job, unfortunately, to then kind of slim it down to, okay, let's look at, you know, I know, it doesn't make us popular at all. It's not made me popular in 9 years, but sort of dream big, and then we scale it down a little bit and get it to what can fit into the venue as well.
Okay. Some way to transitioning into DNA. At least you had that today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that brought back sort of all sorts of memories. We're kind of changing it from we lost Elijah Shakers and things like that, and kind of having that transition moment of like, okay, yeah, let's get it down to, because I think we'd allowed in sort of a bracket about half an hour at one point. I think we kind of allowed 30 minutes between the shows just to make sure that everything was okay, and that was kind of being very very cautious about it and saying, all right, we're going to allow loads of time, and if something goes wrong, we know we're going to be all right. And that's always my attitude. If it goes wrong, then we know we're okay, and that's, you know, normally what I'm looking for. And I think we got it down to something like 7 minutes in the end, thanks to some serious hefty work from sort of Andy and Chris. So yeah, it was great, and it was really good, because again, we were like, Jesus, you know, we've sped through this, and then Botley would come down and be like, yeah, just, you know, sort of make sure that everything's in the right place. Be like, yeah, I'm happy, let's crack on. And we were ready to go. So it was, again, sort of your adrenaline's pumping to get things done as quickly as you possibly can. And again, we kind of then work off of you and work off of what you guys kind of give us as a result of that, and say, okay, well, he wants it quicker. He definitely wants that 20-minute interval to make sure that it's not waiting too long, if not less than that. I think they were maybe shorter than that on some nights, but
oh yeah, for sure. Like you guys, I mean, you did it so quickly, it was crazy. But I guess my point is, you know, but then at the end of it all, you know, all of us, and Sam knows this as well, because me and Sam, I mean, we were like worst enemies during the spring shows, because I'm very, very specific with like what I want, and Sam basically just had to put up with that, as you did too. I mean, Sam didn't really get a whole lot of choice in anything to do with the. Yeah, it was precisely. You know, but you know, we all go to the pub afterwards. We're all still got, you know, great mates, and I think you get this sort of, you get a camaraderie with that, you know, like because we all fundamentally we're all so passionate about it. Whether it's just, you're going, no, but like, you know, I really need to make sure that the set is, you know, is right, and I'm going, I need to make sure my actors are doing right, and Sam's going, I need to make sure my cast are great after coming off the stage, and blah. But we all, you know, it's all linked with a passion, and we're all happy about each other afterwards.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I think everyone, you know, that comes into it gets it as well. Just almost automatically. Don't take it. You know, at that point, people are probably feeling quite tired, a bit nervous, a bit anxious. You know, in whatever role they're in, to know that everything is in the right place and everything's where it should be. And as you say, in the run up, sometimes there's tension, sometimes there's artistic differences, shall we say? That's very diplomatic, isn't it? Artistic differences. Remember that one. Or whatever it might be, compromising that might have to happen. That does create that. Oh, that's not how I wanted it though, and that's a very, very difficult thing. And I can imagine that's really hard for you guys as directors to want. Compromising when you're a director is not what you do, and that's totally it. That's essentially the bottom line. Someone asks a director to compromise, that then changes your entire vision. So it does change things, and it does make a difference. But absolutely, we're all down the pub on the Sunday once the get out's done, and it's as if none of it ever happened. If we've been a bit snappy or short with each other, it's almost like, oh well, it was show week.
Yeah.
What do you expect? So. But yeah, no, absolutely, and trying to get that balance and making sure. But we all do get on, like we might have a harsh word said here and there where we're getting a bit tired even, or just getting to that point where something just isn't quite going as we wanted it to go. But in the end, like you say, we're all down, happy as anything. Congratulating each other for a great week by the Sunday and getting on like a house on fire.
You've got me down to a T. You can almost predict exactly what I'm going to do before I do it. Almost like it's like I've got a square block and I'm going to put it in the round hole and try and force it in. And you're like, no, Sam, it's this one.
Yeah, but I mean yeah. I think between me and you. I mean, how old were you when you did Midsummer Night's Dream? Try and do the maths. 2011. How old were you in 2011?
You would have been.
Yeah, I think it was
17, 18.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
because
I'm talking about you, Burke.
No, I must have been 16.
16? So I've known you since you were 16. You're 25 now. So I think that comes with that side of things. It's been similar with others. I mean, I've been quite lucky with the directors I've worked with. No, say Sam, sometimes it is like I can see where he's going and I'll translate that for him, or something like that. Like I see where you're going with it, and it's like, okay, can I help you out here? Like let's see what we can do. But that's my role. Like that's what I do, and how much a director wants to depend or use me is up to the director at the end of the day. If they're a bit more hands on, that's okay, that's fine. As long as we get there, it doesn't really matter. But there's other directors. I mean, I went to college with Tyler, so I've known Tyler since I was 16. Frankie was a member. You two were both members as well. So I've been really lucky with pretty much all the directors that I've worked with, that I've kind of known you for a significant level of time.
That's true. Yeah.
There's gaps in that knowing relationship, obviously, where you've gone off and you've done the things that you've done, but you kind of, you don't change that much. Like you change significant amounts in terms of growing up, but you kind of hark back and remember. Sam, I always remember the last night of Bugsy. For example, everyone was so emotional, and it was just, it's those things, and you think you do relate back to those times that you had with you guys when you were members, when you were younger. To sort of think, okay, I think I get where they're coming from, and I think I get how they communicate, but. There are always the shocks. There is always the surprises of like, wow, okay, I didn't expect that. Yeah, okay, let's crack on. Let's do it. But I have been very fortunate with the directors that I've kind of known them in some capacity before I've worked with them in the majority of cases. So it has sometimes been a bit of an easier ride because you don't have that trying to get to know them, trying to get to see how they tick and how they work. Obviously, in the director capacity, absolutely, that's always going to be the case in terms of seeing how they work. Because Sam, for example, how you worked on 12 Incompetent Jurors versus Legally Blonde versus Dumbwaiter are very different styles all the way through because they're very different shows. But lending that support and doing what you can to be there for them, whether that's a translator or if it's just that shoulder to cry on when when things are just getting a bit too stressful. Because not necessarily you, but like when things get a bit much for you guys as well. We get stressed on getting day, but so do you, because you're watching this thing and you're like, this isn't how I pictured it. This isn't looking like it should yet. It's like, just bear with, give us an hour and then come back. Things will look a bit different.
Any advice to any potential volunteers?
I think that our members, one thing I will say is our members talk a lot. Ex-members, current members, leavers often, but how much YouFit has done for them. But I think it's equally important that we talk about, and you guys have been really good with that sort of during these conversations with, but also very open about it just generally in terms of what youth theatre does for us as volunteers. Like I say, I'm very much an introvert, very much a shy kind of person, generally speaking. But youth theatre has done ridiculous amounts for me in terms of my own confidence level as well. You are taken in as part of a family, you belong, and it's all of those things in terms of volunteers that actually we take away exactly the same things that our members do. And I think that's such a rare thing to find, that actually you volunteer for somewhere and it gives you more confidence. It gives you that family connection feeling outside of, sort of general day-to-day life with these people who need you and who need you to do your job, and you need to get on and get it done, and you do it for them, and you take away with you that pride, that love, that feeling of belonging, and that feeling of actually, this is, I'm part of this, I'm part of this magic that's happening. And from a volunteer point of view, it can be very scary kind of to hand out and say, I'd like to help, I want to be part of it. But whether you're helping out in front of house for half an hour a week, or whatever it might be, whatever capacity, or you're there every rehearsal, no matter what, I guarantee you'd be hard pushed not to take something really life-changing away from that experience with our guys. Whether that's the crew, whether that's the cast, whoever that is, they will change your life, and they will change it for the better, 100% of the time, and it will literally have this life-altering effect on you, and you won't even realise it's happening until all of a sudden you think, wow, okay, this is a moment, and I think, getting this t-shirt, for example, and things like that, and you have those moments and you think, Jesus, what are we? I think we started calling ourselves a cult after the first Fringe visit I did and stuff, but we are such a family, and if you want to just help and just be part of watching a child grow up, watching them at 11 years old wouldn't say boo to a goose, and then all of a sudden 18 years old, they're standing there in the spotlight quite happily with a mic on, belting out a solo, and you just think like there's nothing like it. And again, I challenge anyone to tell me that they wouldn't cry watching that, because I have multiple times. And it's that pride and joy of thinking I've got 60 11 to 18 year olds under our wing, and collectively we are helping them to create a little bit of magic in their life, and equally they're handing that straight back without even knowing that they're doing it. So if you're looking for magic, if you're looking for love, SIYT. Yeah, I think it's equally important that the members know quite what they mean to me as well from that point of view. I don't always vocalise it. I'm not one for sort of speeches and things, but that's where I'm at. They've helped me more than they will ever know, and that's really wonderful. So yeah, volunteer for SIYT. It will change your life.
Thank you so much, Jess.
Thank you.
And we'll see you in a couple of days when we talk about more youth theatre stuff. We'll keep seeing ya. See you later, Jess.
Bye.
Bye.